So one of the key issues discussed by both the leaders is the issue of immigration. Remember, the deportation of 104 illegal Indian immigrants just days earlier had emphasized Donald Trump's strong stand on the illegal infiltration. But more importantly, the tough stance has also raised some concerns over legal immigration, especially when it comes to the H-1B visas. Speaking on the issue of illegal immigration, the Prime Minister said that illegal immigration remains a global issue and many innocent people are lured by big dreams. The Prime Minister also assured that India will take back verified illegal immigrants and will protect the poor from exploitation and human trafficking. Listen in to what the Prime Minister said.
जहां तक भारत और अमेरिका का सवाल है, हमने हमेशा कहा है कि जो वेरीफाइड होगा, कि जो सच्चे अर्थ में भारत का ही नागरिक होगा, वो अगर अमेरिका में गैर कानूनी तरीके से रहता है तो उसको वापस लेने के लिए भारत तैयार है। ये सामान्य परिवारों के बच्चे होते हैं, उनको बड़े बड़े सपने दिखाए जाते हैं और उनको ज्यादातर ऐसे होते हैं उनको गुमराह करके लाया जाता है और इसलिए ये ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग में जुड़े हुए पूरे इकोसिस्टम पर हमने वार करना चाहिए और अमेरिका और भारत मिलकर के हमारी कोशिश है और हमारी कोशिश रहनी चाहिए कि इस प्रकार की पूरी इकोसिस्टम को हमें जड़ मूल से नष्ट करना चाहिए।
Yes, it did figure during the discussions today, and the Prime Minister said, as I think he mentioned during the press conference as well, and during the discussions also he said that India has made its stand very clear that if there are illegal immigrants proven to be Indian citizens in any country abroad, we will take them back. But he did emphasize, and again I think he referred to this in his remarks at the press conference, but even during the discussions, he did emphasize that the return of illegal immigrants is not the end of the story. There is an ecosystem that thrives on this racket and that promotes and enables this racket. And it is the responsibility of both countries to do something about this.
So what's going to be the way forward? Joining us on the broadcast is Captain Alok Bansal, Director of the India Foundation. But before I come to you, let's tell our viewers, Times Now has been leading the coverage from the United States. And Senior Executive Editor Madhavdas Gopalakrishnan is joining us on the broadcast live from Washington, D.C. It's late in the night there. Madhav, it was quite a packed day for the Prime Minister. You were also at the Oval Office as the joint briefing with President Trump and Prime Minister Modi took place. What do you think from this visit are the big wins for India?
Well, I think, Pratibha, it's very difficult to quantify which are the big takeaways because there are just so many. Starting with, Tahawar Rana and his extradition, something that India has long wanted, has long demanded, and 17 years after 26/11, now finally Tahawar Rana would be extradited from the United States to India to finally face legal action at that, with Prime Minister Modi welcoming this move and saying that the courts in India would take things forward. But the formal stamp of approval on this extradition, and also, of course, a silver lining that President Trump saying that there would be more such requests that would be considered by the United States. Certainly, of course, being seen as a massive win for India and a huge message being sent out for those who plan and perpetrate terror against India. But that notwithstanding, there are huge areas of cooperation, a whole host of agreements that have been announced of research, of development, of co-production in the defense area, and also, of course, agreements as far as critical and emerging technologies, whether we're talking about AI, whether we're talking about space, several such areas where there would be increased cooperation between India and the United States. Now, defense manufacturing is going to be a very, very important one, because here we are looking at a situation where there would be co-production between Indian and United States companies in the areas of defense, F-35 was a big announcement by President Trump saying they are prepared to offer the F-35 stealth jets as well to India, something of course that India has not made its stand public on, saying that there is no current procurement process underway, but really of course one will have to look at the fine print of this in terms of what its implications are for India. Will the F-35 come with certain riders and conditions remains an important question at this point of time. But yes, when it comes to the issue of trade, President Trump was very, very clear. He believes that in terms of the tariffs, India levies is amongst the highest and makes it very difficult for the United States companies to compete as far as those high tariffs are concerned. And therefore, he's spoken of reciprocal tariffs, that whatever is the tariff that a country charges, the United States would also charge similar tariffs on those countries. But the silver lining to that, as the Foreign Secretary referred to in his press briefing post the bilateral meeting, is that there is also talk of India and a U.S. trade deal. Now that trade deal is something that was envisaged in the first regime of Trump, and now perhaps it can see fruition. Fall this year is the deadline that has been set, which means the next 7 to 8 months of negotiations should be able to lead to an Indo-US trade deal, and that of course will perhaps settle these entire issues pertaining to tariffs, is the hope from the Indian side at least. So all in all, several announcements being made, but clearly what was characterized is the fact that both President Trump as well as Prime Minister Modi share this bonhomie. In fact, being asked about whether the Prime Minister was a better negotiator or him, President Trump clearly said that it was PM Modi who was a better negotiator. Prime Minister Modi also saying that when it comes to deal making, he can only think of one name, and that is that of President Trump. So clearly both the leaders sharing a lot of bonhomie, all of that clearly evident, and the very fact that they've managed to get this up and running within the third week of President Trump's inauguration clearly goes to show the a kind of attempt being made by both sides at least to achieve or whatever the targets are within the next 4 years of President Trump's tenure. Very, very significant from India's side as well, and very significant for the US, which also has its own set of expectations from all of these agreements that have been arrived at today. Back to you, Pratibha.
Okay, all right, Madhav. Thank you for joining us with all those inputs. So, key issues being mentioned by the Prime Minister and President Trump on illegal immigration, on trade tariff, as well as Tawaho Rana, interestingly also mentioning cross-border terrorism and saying that there are more to follow. We'll come to that point in just a moment. But Captain Alok Bansal, since back home, we saw a lot of conversation about the deportation of the illegal immigrants, with opposition in particular raising questions. For the United States, it was also about building up that narrative, which is why they sent their military aircraft. Back home, a lot of politics played out about it, and this was expected to be one of the thorny issues in the conversation with President Trump. What do you make of what the Prime Minister said, that it's not just the end of the story with the illegal immigrants, but there's more to speak about it and the entire ecosystem to be taken on?
See, firstly, I think there was no doubt that India has always said that we are willing to take back illegal immigrants. Sending them by military aircraft, to my mind, was a justified and a right step. Because if they would have been sent by a civilian airline, there would have been a cost to pay. And who would have paid the cost? Would government of India have paid the cost, or the government of US would have paid the cost? That would have been there. Of course, the way they were changed and handcuffed has raised a lot of hackles. And I feel, I think some of it was a little, they had gone a little overboard. But we also need to understand that such a large body of troops coming in a military aircraft, probably some amount of restraint would have to be exercised. But I'm sure this would have been worked out. What India was more worried about was that the legal migration to US should not stop, because H-1B is a very, very important facet. The other visas that the corporates are given for work permits, etc., are very important, because our IT companies are extremely dependent on these visas, which allow them to send professionals to go and work in the United States. And I'm sure something would have been worked out. The biggest advantage of this visit has been that we have really managed to stymie the criticism, or a huge tariff war that we were expecting is not happening. Of course, he has said that we will have reciprocal tariffs. But what we have done is that by accepting to import huge amount of energy from United States and signing some defense deals and nuclear energy, changing nuclear reactors laws, we have managed to at least give an impression that we will rectify the trade imbalance that exists as far as the United States is concerned.
Okay, all right. Captain Alok Bansal, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. There are many more highlights from the press briefing of the two world leaders, and we bring you all of those updates after a very quick break. Do stay with us.